And we're live. Welcome back to the Challenge Insiders episode 2 or the Challenge All Stars recap episode 2 as well. Chantel, how have you been?
I've been great. Honestly, I know that I'm a super fan and I love the OGs, but this episode, it just delivers. It's what I want from the challenge. So I'm in good spirits. I saw the preview for the next week and I can't wait to even watch that. So they've got me hooked. I'm into it. And it's really enjoyable to have at the end of my week every week. So I'm happy to be here to talk about it and I'm happy to watch it.
Listen, I love it. I don't know the players as well as you know them. I'm definitely not a super fan, but I love the concept of the challenge, and I love seeing it on my TV twice, or on my computer screen, I should say, for Paramount Plus twice a week. And it's been really, really great to watch so far. It's great to get to know these different characters that are in this season, and I really love the fact that they're continuing to show us the flashbacks of previous seasons. Mm-hmm. Obviously, going into this episode, we had a challenge, which was the challenge trivia, which I would have absolutely probably been really bad at because I wouldn't have known as much as most of these people. I think there was a couple of people there that probably surprised us in regards to their knowledge because they haven't been on the show for so long, but clearly they must be fans and still watching the show in their free time.
Well, I mean, I think there's some people that retain that sort of information. Like when you play those kind of games, you just remember. I played some, online orgs and live, reality games, and you have to kind of remember some of that trivia sometimes. So I could remember oh yeah, 3 years ago in that one, so-and-so was the second person out of this competition. And you just sort of remember these things if you're in a game mindset. So the people that did well, I think that they didn't even realize that they were always still in game mode and they still were retaining that information.
Yeah, obviously Anissa comes to mind, seeing her go all the way there until the end and being there up against Ruthie, who's someone who hasn't been in the challenge world for so long. That was the shocking matchup for me in this specific episode. But Anissa, you'd expect it from, because she's been playing the challenge pretty much her whole life now. How old was she when she first started this?
Probably 20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's 10, 20 years, almost 20 years of her playing this game. And you'd expect her to do well at this and to know quite a lot. I guess some people would still not retain that information, but Anissa does come across as one of those people that she lives and breathes the challenge. I mean, she wouldn't still be doing it if she didn't love the show and she didn't really, if she wasn't in those circles around the challenge.
Well, and that's another thing that I've really realized is probably the drawing factor in as to why I love the OGs is because they started the game as fans. They started either, real world or road rules, and then they were brought into the challenge world because that was how it was morphing and, shifting and changing. And then, we have the Big Easy as from Fresh Meat. So that was I never really liked the Fresh Meat when it was coming. I'm that's not how we're supposed to do it on the challenge. They're supposed to be on the real world or road rules. So I was Fresh Meat doesn't matter, but I've grown to accustomed to Fresh Meat as being part of the initiation of the challenge. And so, but they all were fans. And that is what is really different that I'm noticing from this season. And then even watching Double Agents, I'm the people like Fessy, they're not fans. They don't know what's going on. And it doesn't make me love them because they don't love the show. They're just on there to get the money, And so that's what the difference is. It's the love and the passion to be there.
And I fully appreciate it. I think one of the things, and I was going to say, it sounds really familiar because you've got all these Big Brother players coming in now. People are they're Big Brother. They're not from the challenge. They shouldn't be in here. So the challenge fans are quite it's like a closed group and a closed community sometimes to other shows coming in there. And it's hard to break in and actually come onto these shows and become a fan favorite if you're not from within the challenge world. And I remember when I first watched the first season that I watched, which was, I think, season 30 or 31. It was 31, it was Final Reckoning. And on that season, I couldn't understand why all these vets were so, abrasive towards the new players. And there was this hazing sort of mentality in the house. And it was something that I really struggled to understand. Now I do understand it, but I do think that, when you've got these new players sometimes playing the show, we've got to understand that some of them weren't even born when some of these players were playing their game. So it's really hard to go back and watch something that happened in 1998 or 2000, and I sort of, as a new fan, put myself into that category as well, because I've seen a lot lot of the seasons. Funny enough, I saw the duel quite recently. So when they brought up that flashback of Beth getting punched in the face by Tina, it's actually something that I remember, and it's quite fresh in my mind right now.
I remember seeing that live. I was like, oh my God, Tina, what do you do? I mean, I thought that her smack was a little bit weak when it happened. I was like, oh, I thought you'd give her a better, like, and make a better sound. But I remember I really wanted her to make impact there. I'm a pacifist now, but at the time I was young, and I really wanted Beth to get that smack. Sorry, continue.
So, okay, well, we go into the actual episode. So we see that the first scene that we see is Laterian coming back to the house, and Laterian now feels very confident. He's got the first win under his belt. You've got Gisela saying that, some people are now afraid that they've seen what Laterian can do, because I think Laterian was only on like 1 or 2 eliminations prior to this season. And one of the things I think that is quite interesting when it comes to the challenge or any of these kind of reality shows is that, winning is a habit. And if you go in there and you get your first win, it builds confidence, and you walk with a different type of swag after that. And it really sort of brings up why there's certain players like your Killer Cams or your Jordans, people that can go in there time after time again and they win all these times because they built that momentum and they built that aura where people don't want to go against them in something like an elimination. And I think that Laterian won really convincingly in this previous episode as well.
I was just going to say, though, with Jordan and Killer Cam, I do feel as though they're not afraid of losing. And I think that that's what hurts a lot of, I'd even say, like, the new players. Like, they go in there fearless. They go in there with the winner's mindset, but they're not going in there with being like, oh, I might lose. And so I think that that's why they perform so well. And I do feel as like once you do get that one win and you get that momentum, it's really possible. But some people have, I think, a little bit of a different mindset. Is like they have a winner's mindset all the time. Even if they lose, they don't allow it to bring them down. So I'm worried with Laterian because he, to me, seems like he still has a little bit of a losing mentality. Hopefully this will give him a little bit of a boost, but there still was, for me, a little bit in his demeanor that made me feel like he's still scared that he could go in and lose again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because he doesn't seem to be a very extroverted type of personality. The ones that you normally see play these shows, he's very much more introverted, plays it low key. But one of the things I think for Laterian, and I know he's in your draft, so you obviously want him to go quite far. I think one of the things that might sort of help him in this early stages is that he's gone in once now. I don't think they're going to throw him in immediately again unless he loses the men's side of whatever they're doing on the day, and that's still a possibility there as well, and then he can't be saved either. But it does look like the way that they're going to be voting in these in this OG season will be pretty much like a consensus type of vote in most of these cases. It comes across that way. We do see some interesting dynamics happening towards the end of this episode, which we'll talk about. There's definitely certain people that didn't want the vote to go down the way it did, but it does seem like there is a big majority group that's sort of moving in the same direction when it comes to putting people into the eliminations at this point.
And I think that like you were touching on it before about the hazing and stuff like that used to happen. I think that that's kind of happening now, that people are grouping together that know each other a little bit better or been on multiple seasons together, have a similar mindset and way to play the game, and also want to have people's back so that if they're in that situation, like they will be able to maybe influence the vote and have them be able to call out who they want to go in against. And so I think it's because they know that they need to finesse their numbers in order for them to have the best chance of coming out if they're in a sticky situation. So that's what I know of the challenge. Like it does become a numbers game, and for whatever reason, I'm not vibing for it, how it's going in Double Agents with like having a big group like that, because I think it's a little bit more fluid and malleable in this OG season. But I think that's what's going on right now, is like they know that they need to have some numbers and people protecting them, and so they're giving people what they want in order for them to be like, I gave you what you want when you had to go in. Now give me what I want when I'm going in. I think it's just to secure their space later on.
No, 100%. And we see at this stage here between Trishelle and Katie, they're spending time together in the room upstairs, and they're talking about the fact that they've known each other their whole life. We get the flashback or the photos of Katie being at Trishelle's wedding. So this has been a really long relationship, and they didn't think that they were going to be rooming together in their 40s after they haven't lived together for so long. But we definitely see this sort of storyline develop here between Trishelle and Katie throughout the whole episode, and what the dynamic of that friendship is. And I think a lot of the fighting and the bickering that's coming in here is just natural with a friendship that's been there for that long. I think there's a lot of things from outside of the game that is starting to sort of seep into the game here as well, in regards to how Trishelle has treated Katie in the past, and potentially how Katie has treated Trishelle as well. Especially later on, it gets really hard to follow some of the fighting and the things that are happening between them, because I think that some of the context we don't have, because we haven't seen them for so long, or I haven't. Maybe you've got a better idea, but I feel like a lot of this is personal life sort of coming back into the challenge world here as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like when you go back home, I think I mentioned this before, you kind of revert to whatever version of yourself you were when you were last at your family home, and you act like a teenager, and you're just like getting spats for no reason, and you just started acting a little bit differently because people start treating you like they treated you 20 years ago. And so I do think that they had some maybe unresolved issues that hadn't been ironed out, that it seems like Katie didn't realize we're still so hot. But we do see that Trishelle has grown up a bit. There's a moment when she's speaking with Anissa, and they have a heart-to-heart about the fight that when she quit her last season. She had a huge fight with Anissa, and they had apologized over probably social media, but this was the first time having a face-to-face moment. And so I was like, Trishelle, she's grown up, she's really like matured. She's like, and it was a mature conversation, because if they had reverted back to that old version of themselves, they'd be yelling at each other, and like it would never have been resolved. And so I was expecting, if there was any sort of, bad blood between her and Katie, that they would have a mature approach. But I think that's because they hadn't resolved any of it, and it was just like they were coming in hot. They weren't able to see eye to eye and really like level with each other, because it was still emotionally charged. Unresolved.
Yeah, and I think the difference, you kind of hit it on the head there, is that when you've got a friend that you've been that close with for so long, like your feelings get hurt a little bit more when somebody doesn't have your back. Like, for instance, in this episode, we see after the challenge, when there's the whole conversation about who's going to go against Trishelle. And this is where a lot of the different conversation is around, like, we need to throw Kendall in there because Kendall didn't do too well in the challenge. And she's saying Katie isn't really helping her or defending her, because clearly Trishelle wouldn't have wanted to go against somebody like Kendall, who seems very athletic, seems quite fit, and the only person really there that's sort of defending, I could say, or sort of trying to help Trishelle in that moment, is Kellyanne, who's saying, like, why would Trishelle want to go against Kendall? Because clearly this makes sense for a lot of the other girls in the house to put Kendall into an elimination, but it's not going to make sense for someone like Trishelle to go up against her. And Anissa seems to be the one that really is sort of pushing, and I feel like probably had a lot of influence on the house in regards to which way they went ultimately with that.
Well, and I think too that because she has this close relationship with Katie with these unresolved feelings, I think that Trishelle was kind of using a little bit of emotional manipulation there, being like, well, if I go home, I can blame Katie on this now because she didn't help consult me on who I should go up against, and she wasn't a real friend to me. And it's not really a realistic approach to take. It's quite juvenile, but they're still kind of stuck in a time warp of 20 years ago on how they should be interacting as human beings. So I really wish that Trishelle didn't get into her feelings there, got into the game and was like, whoa. This has nothing to do with Katie. This has to do with me. I'm going in there. It's not her problem to fix. Like, let me figure out what I'm going to do here, and let me consult Katie if I choose to, as to whether or not this is a good decision. Like, I don't know why she feels the need to have Katie make that decision for her and hold her to the flame, the fire, because she didn't do so. I think she has unrealistic expectations of their friendship, and she hasn't really told Katie what she expects of her as a friend,
I was going to say that's the thing that stood out for me the most. Like, if I had to, as a neutral who don't know the history, decide who sounded better between the two here, I would actually go and say Katie articulated a little bit better what the issue is with Trishelle. She says Trishelle's always, used me as an emotional punching bag, and I assume this is not just in the game. I'm assuming this is their friendship outside of this as well, and that if she gets frustrated, she takes it out on Katie. But Katie is saying, "I'm in my 40s now. I don't need to take this from Trishelle any longer. We're not living together anymore." Trishelle keeps going back to when they lived together, and if Katie had her back in the day. I feel like the edit kind of protected or showed Katie in a better light here than Trishelle in that sense. But at least Trishelle, like you said, does get that redeeming scene between herself and Anissa. And I also want to give kudos. I want to give kudos to both of them here. Obviously, Trishelle for firstly apologizing and having grown and realizing that what she did back in the day, I think it was 9 years ago, was horrible. Obviously, we as human beings, we evolve. And I feel like in today's culture, a lot of the times we just burn people and forget about them if they did something wrong when they were 18 or they were 10 years old. I'm not saying we should forgive everyone, especially if they don't show remorse, but I think this is a really, really good thing here with Anissa also being very accepting of that and sort of taking this on face value and realizing that Trishelle has moved on. She has become a different person. So I feel like this is a great episode, and we need to see more of these types of things happening in front of us on a very big platform like the challenge, where we can see people can grow, people can move on. We're allowed to forgive people for things they've done a long time ago if they've actually moved on. And I feel like this is a really good scene here, and they handled it extremely well as well. I also wanted to touch on one other little thing that's happening throughout this episode, and obviously I'm going to keep an eye on this guy because he's my number one guy pick, but Derek, playing a really good social game throughout this whole episode. We see him here talking to Kendall when she's doing yoga before the actual challenge, and sort of trying to I guess build a bit of rapport with her and find out, hey, you're out here quite a lot. This is, are you trying to get the record for doing yoga? So clearly she's probably spending a lot of time away from the rest of the group, and he's checking in to make sure if she's doing okay. He's really relating to her, and she sees that she doesn't really know why she's back. She's in a weird space mentally, and we find out that she's a hospice nurse at the moment. So obviously with that type of profession, you're always caring and looking after other people. So it must be really weird for her to be selfish for a change and come into a show like this to come and play. And she says it's not about the money. And I think that it's probably not about the money this early in the game because you're that far away from it. It doesn't feel realistic. But the closer we're going to get to the end, I'm pretty sure if Kendall is still there, it will become about the money, because I don't know if hospice nurses really get paid that much per year either. And I think this is a great opportunity. So I thought this was a really good scene for multiple things. Firstly, Derek on his social game, and he continues to play on this throughout the episode, and we'll talk about that later on as well. And then secondly, just getting to know a little bit more about Kendall and her motivation coming back to the show.
Well, when I saw Kendall, like this conversation, and then right before we saw Trishelle saying that she doesn't want to be the first to go home, immediately I was like, okay, Trishelle versus Kendall is what they're setting us up here for. So I kind of knew that was the direct, like that's what I was feeling anyways, that the direction that the episode was going to be going in. And so hearing that she was like, she didn't know why she was coming back there, I was like, uh-oh, what does this? Does it mean that she doesn't have the fire and the fight in her anymore? What does this mean? Does this mean that Trishelle's going to beat her? Like, what does this mean? And so that's kind of where my head was going. And I think the reason why she's taking us time with herself here is that her season that she was on, the one challenge season she was on, was eons ago, and she doesn't really know all these people. So she's kind of like a fish out of water. She knows only really Darrell, and there's one other person that, and I guess Derek was on that season too. Was there in the Real World season? Road Rules, I mean? I can't remember. They might have been.
It could be, yeah, because he's from way back, yeah.
Yeah, I think they think they were all, him, Darrell, and her were on the Road Rules season together. So, like, I think that's why Derek wanted to go and talk to her, because it's like, she's really strong, and she's like, don't count her out, because like she can do well. She's won the only season that she's been on. And two, if she wins one of these dailies, which is very likely for her, and he's in the hot seat, maybe she would use the lifesaver on him. So I think it was twofold with his intention there. But as we were talking about, safety in numbers, you want to have somebody that you know is on your side, head in the game. Get their head in the game. And so, yeah, I was happy that he took a moment to kind of bring her in and see where she is and try to give her whatever she needs to get her mind in the game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the reason it stood out is like I've seen Derek in a few seasons. I never saw him in any of his winning seasons because those were the really early seasons. But he's always impressed me when it came to his the amount of heart that he has and how good he is in the challenges and things like that. But he's never come across as someone that necessarily builds all of these social bonds that well, or they've never really shown that in previous seasons to me personally. I felt like he's always been very challenge focused, but I also wonder because he's getting older and because he's got his own podcast now where he's learned to network with a lot of challengers to come on his show and have a conversation with him. I feel like he's slowly but surely adding that element to his game, which obviously for me is very promising. And I'm very happy with what I'm seeing at this stage from Derek being my number one guy pick. I had high hopes for him coming into the season, and so far he is not disappointed at all when it comes to that. Now we move into the challenge part of the show, and it is challenge trivia, which is a classic when it comes to the challenge. In this one, it is all about challenge history. So clearly, I was lost throughout most of this, but there's a few things I definitely do know. Johnny Bananas is the most winningest person. I've seen the Johnny Bananas backpack, the banana backpack, so many times. They replay that, and even the current seasons quite a lot.
But honestly, if you had seen that when it was live, I remember I was like, oh my god, it was like I was in like a gladiator pit, and like I was chanting, like it was really epic. It's really hard for you to like. Obviously, it looks epic, which is seeing bananas look like.
No, I've seen the episode. But I didn't see it live, but I watched the season later on, and I did see that season, and it was quite exciting. They do use it a lot, but I was excited. It was definitely, it's impressive to do that to Johnny Bananas because he's not, and even in that season, he wasn't a small guy either. That season.
Yeah,
to do it.
So yeah, the reason why that it was just so epic at the time was it was just so unexpected. It was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, no more than that, like I don't know, 15 years ago. It was just so long ago, and like it was just unexpected and so epic. And I definitely understand why they keep on bringing it back, because it really was a moment in time. Like it was historic. It doesn't have, to me, seeing the clips back, it doesn't have the same effect as when I was watching it in real time. And like I was so in it. Like so good. It was so good.
It's one of the reasons we all love CT, and like even when he does things this season that at some points kind of make us a little bit, CT, that wasn't too great. You still come back to him. You still come around to him at the end because we've seen him grow on the show. We've seen him from being this young, immature guy to becoming the man he is now, and obviously because of that, for people that have especially followed it year on year and who have had to wait for every season, I can imagine that's even more epic. But the really surprising thing here for me is the amount of people that are getting these questions wrong. It does show that there's a lot of them that have moved on with their life, right? They played the show a while ago. They've done other things. They probably never expected to come back into the show, but it really sort of shows you who are the ones that sort of keep up with the times and who are the ones that have sort of moved on.
I'll put on my tinfoil hat here. Maybe some people did some studying when they came onto the show because they knew that they're going to be doing trivia, because trivia is TJ's favorite game. He loves cackling at them making mistakes and falling into the water. Like that's his favorite. And so Anissa's smart enough to know that, hey, I better be up to date on my challenge trivia, and maybe Ruthie as well. Especially not being there for many years. And so I think some people just did their homework a little bit better, because if I knew I was going on the challenge, I would be doing my challenge history, or at least just really maybe knowing who could potentially be on, who were they in alliances with, who are their friends. So you need to, if you want to win, you need to kind of know a lot about the players that you're going to be playing with. And so I think that the people that did well did some homework.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And I mean, especially if you look at the fact that, we know that Tech and Ruthie are quite close, and both of them surprised in this challenge being there right until the end. There's a good chance that they could have studied together or, had the same strategy going into the season to make sure that they're prepared. But we end up seeing for the guys Nehemiah winning the show. Now, I didn't realize it's been 10 years since he's played on the show. Like, I mean, I feel like it's been the other day that obviously I rewatched the seasons pretty recently, but I'm surprised. Why has Nehemiah fallen so far from the picking order when it comes to normal seasons?
I don't think it's not being asked. I don't think that he said yes.
Okay.
I think that he maybe has moved on a little bit in that sense, and maybe the shorter season was a little more appealing to him. But I don't think that it was that he's being shunned by the season at all. I don't think that that's the case.
Yeah, because it's interesting, having a conversation with Mike earlier, he mentioned that Mile does want to come back. He's one of the players that would want to come back and play in the current seasons. But it could be that maybe after one of those earlier seasons, he wasn't really that interested in doing it immediately and then became interested in it like 2 or 3 or 4 years later. But then he was sort of not on the radar anymore because other players, and that's the big fear and the big problem with, I guess, for players that are really, unless you're a legend, if you're someone that sort of falls out of the rotation of coming back season after season, you can easily be forgotten because there's always a good flow of new players coming into the show that potentially could make a name for themselves while you're not on the show. So maybe it's a little bit of that.
Well, and also, like, he's not that dynamic, right? Like, he doesn't like to scheme, really. He doesn't like to strategize. He's pretty good at the actual challenges, but he doesn't have that much to offer some of the other players that are like a little bit more flashy do. So he's a good, consistent, maybe more of a filler player in my opinion. Sorry, any Nehemiah stands out there, but he's not as like wow or like the first person. Like he needs to be on the season. Like it's not somebody that comes to my mind when I think of somebody that needs to come back and win. Or win play. So that could be also it, that maybe he really did fall out of the thoughts of the producers and he didn't make enough of an impact maybe in his last season that he did, maybe.
Yeah, highly possible. I've got high hopes for Nehemiah. Obviously, he was my second guy pick for this season. He does end up winning this challenge for the guys, which is great. I mean, you wouldn't expect him necessarily to win a trivia challenge. You'd think it would be something physical or athletic. He does have sort of the presence of mind to say that maybe it's not the best thing to use the safety this week specifically. It is quite early in the season, but he does say that if one of his friends does end up going down to the elimination, he would use it. We also see a little bit of a confessional here from Beth saying that, her tenderoni has won it and he would save her. And I don't know why. I just have a really, really bad feeling about what's going to happen between Nehemiah and Beth this season. I feel like he's going to burn her really hard. I feel like the edit is setting us up.
Yep, I do agree with you because I was like, they don't put those little sound bites in there for no reason. And so that clip is going to be relevant moving forward. And I definitely clocked that as well. It's like, I don't know if he's going to still be your tenderoni anymore. And I can't wait for to see how that falls out. And I think another thing too, which might be allowing these people to be more hesitant of using the lifesaver, is the fact that they don't, or it hasn't been explained to us yet as the audience, what happens if they do use it? Do they do a revote right then? Who picks the next person that goes down? Is there no elimination and we just don't know that yet? Like what happens? And so I think that also the fear of not knowing how that would be resolved might be hesitant. If it's somebody that you don't really care about, like I'm not going to rock the boat when I don't even know how things might shake out.
No, 100%. Now, let's talk about the female part of the challenge, and the big sort of thing that stood out for us here was the Kendall one, with Kendall going all the way to the last platform, and she doesn't fall through the platform, so clearly she's quite light because a lot of people
No, she went to the side. She didn't step on the last one. She hopped all over it, and so I think that's why.
Really?
That's like she didn't step on the last one. She moved to the side and that's why it didn't break, because if she had stepped on it and it didn't break, she would have still been in the challenge, right? But she didn't want to fall through. So that's where that whole thing came. That's why like everybody was so irritated by her.
Okay, because I thought, and again, I only watched it once, I could have missed it. I thought she was on the last platform and TJ asked her to hop on it because some people, they didn't fall through immediately and she hopped over. But again, she hops over. Clearly she's quite confused and flustered at this stage. And we do see later on, especially when they go to the nomination ceremony or whatever you would call that she's quite flustered and confused even at that point to try and defend herself, which doesn't look good for her at all. But, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and just say that, she hasn't played this thing in a very, very long time. She's just seen Katie, take a really, really bad bail before her going down, Katie hitting her face again. So just the sheer coincidence that she's done this twice in 2 seasons. She's clearly freaked out by this. And when she's over the platform, she doesn't know if it's safe to go back the way that she just came. So she doesn't know what to do in that situation.
She was pulling a fast one, and TJ let her do it, and nobody else was letting her have it. Because, like, I was like, TJ, like, make her step on the thing. Like, and he just kind of moved on and just, like, kind of forgot about her, and then she just stayed off to the side, and she never completed the actual task. She didn't step on the last tile. And in the deliberation, when Hisela asked her about it, she didn't have a really good enough reason. Like, if she just had said, I was scared to fall, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, I should have stepped on the tile like everybody else did. That's part of the game. Like, just say that. Like, better than be like, like, that's never good. That's never good. Just say the truth. I was scared to fall. Katie's fall scared me, and I didn't want to hit the water that hard.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like Tech said, if you're that confused, just jump off the side or something, but at least go into the water, and it's a lesson for everyone here, because clearly, you only need to do one thing wrong at this point, and people just need a very small reason to put you down there. And if it's going to align, because I don't for a minute believe that that's the only reason Anisa targeted her. If you're going to be a very physical, great competitor, people are going to look for the smallest of reasons to throw you down there. And it just so happens she didn't complete this task, so she does go down. And Anisa ultimately wins this, and Anisa gives us that great confessional about the fact that she's been in 21 of these eliminations, so it's a pretty good feeling for once to know that she doesn't have to go down there.
Absolutely. Like, I'm happy that she didn't need to go, like, be worried about going into the elimination, because some people do still probably consider to be weak, or like that she could potentially be a layup. Even though I think that she's physically a little bit sturdier than a lot of the women that are on this season. But I have to say that both on Double Agents and this new All-Star season, she has won the first challenge for herself, which is great. She did it with
Anisa's great. Yeah, she's great at the daily challenges. Like, the daily challenges, I don't think anybody faults her. I think she'd be a brilliant partner even to have in these daily challenges, because she's got certain strengths that really suit the daily challenges. I think, and again, it's hard to say because we haven't seen her run a final in recent times, but my worry if I was her partner, and I know a lot of people would crucify me for saying this, I would be worried about running a final with her. Like, I would be worried if it's an endurance run, because a lot of these challenges seem to be endurance based. But who knows what's going to happen this season? It is a different, like, they seem to be using a lot more legitimate challenges at this stage, like what we see in today's challenges. But who knows? It could be a much shorter version of what we're seeing in the challenges now.
I mean, I think some of the challenges in the past were hard, like at least equally as hard. I don't even think that they've been that hard in recent years. I feel like some of the other times I'm like, oh, that's hard. This is way harder, where they like make them stay up all night standing on a bucket, and then like make them like run for a day, and then make them climb a mountain. Like, I feel like they used to make them do more things, and I kind of have felt that some of these latest ones have been a little bit easier in my opinion. So
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to gauge the sheer distance that they're running in some of these challenges. For instance, when we saw Total Madness, where Paulie and some of the guys were like, Paulie was completely out of it. I think that the distance that they had to like run with when they were carrying that, it's hard sometimes to gauge how far they're running or how long some of these challenges are going, and we see more of the times that they actually stop and physically do a puzzle, or they physically have to do something like, off the challenge. But I think that there's been some tough ones, like, but yeah, like I said, it's definitely interesting. I don't know how she's going to go in the final, but they're making their decisions at the moment based on the fact that it potentially would be an endurance type of challenge at the end. And that's why they're targeting Kendall, right? Because Kendall looks really fit. Kendall still seems to be someone that would be a challenge going into one of these finals if she had to run it. I don't know how good she is at the puzzle aspect or anything like that. And I don't even know if you would know, because she's only played one challenge, right? So I don't know how she's going to do in the sort of the smart side of things, but definitely from a physical standpoint, she does look to be one of the stronger females this season.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, she's doing yoga. She's quite slim. I'm sure that she has decent cardio. But this is what I think is good about this season as well, is that it seems to be every man for themselves. So they don't have to worry about having somebody else weigh them down or keep them in the back or whatever. And so I really like that element. And I also, we don't even know with Double Agents if whether or not it's going to matter your partner, because there's been a lot of seasons where, yes, you do part of with this person, then you switch with somebody else, and then you switch with somebody else, but like everybody's still timed on their own or whatnot. And so I don't think that it should be that big of a factor of getting somebody in the final, because I think that if I was another woman, I would want Aneesa in the final, because if I was going just head to head against her, I would think that, like, I think I could beat her. So who cares if every guy needs to have her on their team? Like, I think that I could beat her. So I would want Aneesa in every final, personally.
Yeah, and I think especially in this season, it's not going to matter as much because they aren't playing in duos. The format is unknown to us. They probably will link up with different partners at the end if they do make it there, or it could be completely individual, who knows. But I think in this season, it shouldn't matter as much. And I think that Aneesa's got a really good shot because she's politically really in with everybody. I think she's experienced. She's shown that she can win daily challenges. I wouldn't be surprised. The one thing that does have me a little bit worried for Aneesa was the previous preview where we saw Darrell and her talking, where Aneesa says, you know, you've known me for like 18 years or since I was 18. So clearly there's going to be a point where Darrell might have to turn against her, or is thinking about turning against her. And that has me a little bit worried for Aneesa down the line. But up until this point, so far, so good in this episode. We do see, obviously, that conversation, like I said, with Trishelle and a few of the people before nomination, and Trishelle saying she wants to go up against, who was the person again? Beth, because Beth is an easier person to take on. And Aneesa comes over and she says, no, I thought we all were going to go vote for Kendall because she didn't complete the challenge. And we spoke a little bit about that conversation, Katie not standing up for her or trying to defend her in that situation. And Kellyanne, funny enough, she's really going to bat here for Kendall. I don't know if it's because she maybe has some sort of an alliance there, or she's looking out for Trishelle.
I think she was looking out for Trishelle, being like, hey, I don't think that it would be a layup for you to go against Kendall. Like, I think you should choose somebody else. I think that she was more supporting Trishelle because they played in I don't know if they played together, but in the same time frame. So I think she would be better friends with Trishelle.
Yeah, it makes sense. And, we again here see the nominations happening, and it is pretty much a unanimous type of scenario where most people are just going to go and vote against Kendall to go in. Obviously, Darrell, he stays loyal to his friend. He does not vote for her, and he throws a vote on Katie. We see all of them go back to the house, and Mr. Social himself, Derek, is the first one that rushes up to go talk to Trishelle here, and he says to Trishelle, listen, you're going to go against Kendall. And Trishelle is really, her feelings is hurt by the fact that Katie didn't go up there to be the first person to tell her this. Katie went down to go get some food, and I can appreciate that as someone who loves my food as well. You know, if I was hungry, I'd probably go make myself a plate of food as well if I needed to deal with Trishelle, because throughout this whole episode, Trishelle's been really emotional, so might as well go in there with a full belly when you're having a conversation and you're going to get yelled at.
Well, I don't even think that she knew that she was going to get yelled at. She's probably like, okay, let me go eat, then we'll go and I'll go talk to Trishelle, and I'll just we'll just have shoot the shit. Like, I don't think she realized that she was on a schedule and that she needed to go immediately to Trishelle before she did anything else, and let her know if she just chose to eat first, then that would mean that she was a bad friend. I don't think she knew that those were the rules that she was playing in, and the guidelines to treating Trishelle well in their friendship. So I think that they both have different understandings on how to treat each other as friends, and it's kind of what Katie said in the end, that they're kind of grow apart, because Katie doesn't want to take that anymore, and Trishelle doesn't really want to see that, hey, like, it's not always on my time. Like, oh, what if something happened to Katie? Like, why is it, oh, she didn't come up and tell me exactly who it was, so I'm going to be mad at her and start a fight? What? Come on. Come on, Trishelle.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I love Trishelle. I'm just I feel like she needs somebody to help moderate her relationship with Katie, because I don't want their friendship to be over. I do think that there's a lot of love between them, that it could be salvaged, but they just need somebody, like a party that's not involved, to go and mediate and just help them get onto the same page.
And I don't think that they were going to sort out what was going wrong in the house with all the pressure that they've got out there to try and win a competition show. I feel like they were never going to resolve it there. So if they were to resolve this friendship, and I'm sure they will, like, you don't easily throw away a friendship of 20 plus years, so I'm sure they'll talk about this after. I did try and look out on Instagram and try to see on the socials if there was anything more that I could see in regards to what happened there. I don't know if you've got more specifics around Twitter, but I couldn't see them posting about this, either one of them. So So I don't really know what the story behind all of this is. But one of the things for me with Katie, I felt really bad for her at certain points in this, because I appreciate the fact that she's feeling like she's a grown woman. You know, she's 40 years old. She does not want to be the person that she was way back when she played the show. And she's really trying to set an example here for her family at home. And there's times where you can just see the cracks forming and her coming out here and getting back into old Katie. And Gisela, sort of says this as well. She says, something happened to us when we came into this house and we became the people that we were 20 years ago when we played the game.
And that's what we're enjoying watching, is seeing that people are just, they're still them, even though life has changed them, that they've grown, they've have families, they've experienced things, like they still got that same fight and fire within them. And it's fun to see it reemerge. I know that Katie's probably not enjoying that side of her is kind of being reignited, but I'm enjoying watching it. Yeah. I was worried though. So I still haven't seen the scene that you were talking about where somebody quits. And so I was worried that it was this episode, because I'm like, oh my God, you said that blonde. I'm like, is Kendall going to quit? Like after seeing that whole scene. And then I'm like, oh my God, is Katie going to quit? I was getting worried that it was going to be Katie that was quitting. And so I'm happy that nobody quit this episode.
Yeah, I'm still confused as to who it's going to be, and there's some really great video editing happening as well, because even when they show again the person quitting at the end, you see that Trishelle is on the actual, she's outside of the ring and she's like shocked by it, but Trishelle's not going to be there because she's already eliminated in this episode. So there's some shenanigans happening here. For all we know, it's a guy or it's someone completely who we don't even know. I feel like the editors are trying to throw us off the scent.
Well, maybe the quit line is spliced in with a reaction from Trishelle about something completely different.
I think so.
So, because I still haven't noticed that. I haven't noticed that clip yet, and so I need to go back and like watch it, like dissect it, and figure out like who's gonna quit. But I definitely
I'll send you a link,
Katie. Okay, thank you.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link of where it gets dissected, and it's part of the new extended trailer for the rest of the season. They put it back in there as well. So I saw it on Derek's Instagram when I jumped on his Instagram for the trailer for the rest of the season, and it's got that clip in there, and it looks like. It's blurred out, but it looks like someone with blonde hair walking off as TJ is saying it. And he says, hope to see you never. So clearly it really annoyed him. But it looks like Trishelle is in. It could be, and I mean, at some point, I was similar to you. I thought it was going to be Kendall, because Kendall, she's not sure why she's there. She's not sure why she's putting herself through all of this. And it didn't look like her heart was in it too much. And it could, for all we know, it could still be her. Like, I mean, I don't think it's going to be Jimmy. I think Jimmy is in this for the long run. I really feel like she came with her game face on for this season. But, and I don't know. Do we think it's in Beth to just walk off?
Yeah. Like, she just be like, if maybe it's something that, yeah, she'd be like, I'm going to keep my self-respect, or like, you know what I mean? Like put her foot down, be like, I'm not going to subject myself to doing something like that. I can see her maybe taking that kind of stance about something specific. I don't know. Maybe it's something super gross or something really embarrassing. I could see her maybe saying like, that's too far for me. I'm not going to do it. So I could see Beth maybe doing it. I could still also see Kendall maybe saying no to something, because like, she's doesn't seem to have her heart fully in it yet. So it could still be Kendall, but who like, it also could just be somebody that didn't know how upset TJ would be, and Kendall would be somebody that doesn't know how much TJ doesn't like quitters. And so for that reason, I would think it would be more of like a Kendall over a Beth, but I hope it's just neither of them, because they're both on my team.
I've only got, who do I have? I've only got Jimmy in my team that's blonde, so I feel pretty happy about that. And plus, the other two females on my team being Janae and Kellyanne, I don't think either one of them will quit either. I feel like they're both.
Janae, maybe. Janae could be a quitter. She could be. But
we see very little of Janae in this episode. I think she's only got like one confessional at some point, which is more than some people. I mean, there's a lot of people that were completely invisible this specific episode. But, the funny thing with Janae is I really hope she does well this season, because I always remember, the only thing I remember with her was the relationship she had with Zach, way back, and how abusive that was, and just always feeling bad for her because she was such a nice person and really cared for him probably more than what she should have. But yeah, I really hope she does well here. She seems happy. She seems like she's in a good place in her life with her husband. And is it a daughter or a son that she has? Do you know?
Doesn't she have? Wasn't it two?
2 kids. Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember though. I feel like I'll say 2 boys, but I actually don't remember specifically.
Yeah, so I hope she does well this season, and so far she seems to be pretty well connected. Now we go into the actual elimination episode, and we see that it's one of the classics where you've got a rope that's tied to you, and you've got to jump into the structure, and you've got to make your body go through all of these different places and try and sort of contort it in a way where you can not make a big knot for the other person to come in and untie. This challenge, I think people underestimate how much of a combination of physical strength is required, how much endurance is required, plus the fact that you've also got to be smart about what you're doing. So it's really a complicated challenge. And especially as you continue throughout the challenge, and you're tying this knot, you've got to have the energy to go over to the other side and then go and untie it. So I felt like when they went into this challenge, I just looking at them physically, I thought, Kendall's going to blow her out of the water unless she doesn't know what she's doing. But she does get coaching here from one of the best to ever do it in Darrell, and she just cuts out everybody else and just listens to Darrell, as she says on the show, and she ties this knot. One of the interesting things here was that I think Darrell was the only one shown to really sort of shout for her to win, and the rest of the house were all going for Trishelle. They wanted the person that they probably think is an easier beat later on to come out of this.
I think it's more so that Trishelle has more friends in the house than Kendall does. So Kendall really only has Darrell and Derek that would be really caring that much if she stayed. So I think it was more so the friendships, and Trishelle is just more of a staple in the franchise. And not people not wanting to vote for Kendall. I don't necessarily think that.
Yeah. Now, we do see that Trishelle absolutely blows it out of the water. It's not even close at the end because, when you look at the two structures, I think there's still a lot of rope in a knot over where Trishelle was in her cage. But I think the big thing that sort of stood out for me here is just showing that Kendall's going to be tough to beat later in the game. She is someone that's going to be pretty dominant. And it's funny, the line that Trishelle gives here at the end saying, if you want to do one of these challenges, don't sit by the pool drinking cocktails. Actually prepare for it. Do we think she'll listen to her own advice for season 2?
No, that's Trishelle. She comes for the drama, the fun. When she was single, she used to make out with everybody. That was her vibe. She wasn't like that big gamer and she was gonna go in and take people out, and she wasn't gonna she's decent. She's won some eliminations, I believe, or she hasn't done terribly, but she's not in it to win it for sure. She doesn't have her game face on. She's coming back for the fun.
I saw this week that Trishelle's claim to fame is the fact that she made out with Leonardo DiCaprio once. Is that actually true?
Oh, I forgot about that. I believe it is true. I do believe. I can't remember that was literally 20 years ago, but I don't remember. But I think that is a true statement.
Fair enough. Well done to her for being able to, I guess, get in there with Leonardo DiCaprio.
She got pretty famous. She got pretty famous after her Real World season. She was on The Surreal Life. She was in the reality TV world, and she was, rubbing shoulders or elbows with a lot of celebrities. So it makes sense.
Wow. Well, it's that era when reality TV was just that big. It
was huge.
Millions and millions of followers. Yeah. So. And I think that back then, these reality stars, they were kind of like celebrities in a lot of ways because people didn't know how to take the reality TV game versus TV shows and movies and sort of where they were sitting. Because even if you think about the early seasons of Survivor, you had hundreds, wasn't it nearly 100 million people that watched it? Or 20, I think it was it was a massive amount of people that watched it.
Well, it's because we were enjoying being the voyeur and taking a look at what was going on in these people's lives. And if you haven't watched it, go watch both seasons of The Real World Las Vegas. She was on the first one, so it was her, Alton was on there, and Arissa. They were all on The Real World Las Vegas, the first one, and it's good.
Sell it to me. What's the concept? What's the concept
The
of the
Real
show?
World? You've never watched The Real World?
Never watched The Real World. I've never watched it.
Literally,
the challenge was,
what their slogan is: 7 people from different parts of the world living in the house, learning how to live together and get along. That was their slogan.
Okay.
And see what happens when people stop being polite and start being real. The Real World, Las Vegas. So
Okay.
and basically, like, so you have people from all over the country living in a certain area. So, you know, we have Real World Las Vegas, we have New York, we have Hawaii. And so they would go and they would live in a house together. They would have to get like a job that was kind of provided by MTV, where they had to work together, and they had to just learn to adapt and learn to get along or not get along. And you just would see these people under a petri dish, like how they interact with somebody that they would never meet in their everyday life. And so it's kind of like Big Brother without the challenges.
I was gonna say it's Jersey Shore with diversity, but basically, because you've got a diverse group of people from different walks of life that are sort of living together. Plus, you actually have to work. Where I guess in Jersey Shore they don't have to work; they just live together and party together all the time.
Well, they did have to work. They worked at Seaside on Jersey Shore. That was the decals and t-shirt shop.
Ah, yeah, you're right. Okay, well, I'll definitely we'll talk after this, and maybe you can point me in the right direction to actually get some of these episodes, so I can get a little bit of an understanding of where some of these players are coming from.
It's such a good season, and like out of all, because I watched all the Real World. I'm more of a Road Rules girl because I thought it was more exciting and dynamic, but I still watched every season of the Real World, and so you really got to know these people, and they were just like, you're like, oh my God, what's happening with that? Like, why are they doing this? And I really do think that Big Brother started because of like the Real World. Like, I know it happened in Sweden first, but like coming to America was, you know, what is it, 1994, 93, 92 was the Real World New York, the first one. And so I think it was the trailblazer for these reality TV shows where we're watching people under the microscope, little hamsters in a cage, like observing their every move. Like it was the beginning. And so I think you should watch 100%. Las Vegas,
because a lot of these seasons were like in the 1990s, weren't it? So it's like going back way back. So at that point, the reason I wouldn't have watched it is because I was still in school. I'm probably too young to watch some of the stuff coming up as well. But I definitely would be interested to get a better understanding of where some of these people come from. So I'll definitely give it a go. Now, one of the last things I wanted to touch on here as well, as we see you know, obviously here Trishelle going on. Derek has sort of mentioned, he's the last person to talk here, to say that we can now see why we should have never doubted Kendall in the first place, and she's back. We do see a hug and an exchange there between Katie and Trishelle, but Katie at the end saying that maybe they've outgrown each other. I do hope that their friendship, they do mend that. Obviously, we don't know what happened outside of the game as well. It does seem like there's a lot we just don't have any context on when it comes to this. But overall, another really good episode. I like the pacing of the episode as well. It's not too long where certain things get dragged out, but I do feel like we didn't get to see a lot of our other favorite characters, people that we think will be there long term. So, you know, we had no Cyrus, we had no Laterian outside of just the beginning of this episode, for instance. Darrell has been very quiet so far this season, but it seems like with Darrell, he's always quiet in the early parts of these seasons and gets more time on the screen when he actually goes towards the end of the season as well. I always look out for who's the person that's getting shown a lot in different footage when they're not necessarily part of what the actual gameplay is at the moment. And I always look at those people as potential to go quite deep in the game. You know, we got a confession here from Jimmy in this episode. I don't feel like she was really involved in anything in this episode.
I think that because it's on a different platform, if you remember, I don't know if you noticed, but back in the day, episodes were like 27 minutes. Like they were like short. They were like 27 minutes. Like they weren't an hour and a half like they are now. And so I think that they weren't sure whether or not people were going to be excited to watch it. And I think that they probably only bought time for the 1 hour episode with commercials. And so I think I wouldn't be surprised if season 2 was longer, from what I've recognized, it's been a success. I think that it was just kind of more of a gamble. This is like Mark Long's little baby, and like, oh, it's just going to be a one-off. It's just going to be an hour long. And so I think that that's probably why they're not developing fully other stories, because they don't really have the time to do it. They just want to get to the meat of what's important. Like they had to get to the Katie fight because Trishelle was going to be going home this episode. And so I think they weren't wasting time building anything else because they want to make sure that they got that in for this episode.
Yeah, now one of the things that Mark Long has done very smartly this season is he hasn't brought back some of the big names that are OGs that are still playing the game currently. And I think that there is still some space to see someone like a CT rub shoulders with the rest of the old crew. Someone like, for instance, a Johnny Bananas to come back, a Wes Bergman. Some of these players, like, who knows? Maybe, I know Leroy said he would never come back out of retirement, but this is a different concept. It's easier money for some of these players compared to, doing a full season where it takes a lot of time away from their day-to-day life. And Leroy's got his own barber shop now, which obviously he's putting a lot of his effort into that. But I do see more players potentially coming back. So I feel like he very cleverly didn't include them in this season. So people would want to see that in season 2 or season 3. And I know that Johnny has indicated that he would be interested in playing one of these seasons in the future. If the timing works. And for Johnny Bananas, if he comes back to this, like, it's, I think he's done. Like, I'm going to make a very big call here. I feel like he's done with the actual challenge. It's just, what else does he have to prove there? He's had 7 wins. He's getting older. Like, he's still really fit and in good shape. And, CT is a freak of nature. He can still win these things in his 40s. But I just feel like, why would he go back to the current franchise now?
I don't think
it's going to be harder.
From what he said, I saw him in an interview. He doesn't really like, I think, the direction that the challenge is going in right now. It's just like, it's with these young bucks that don't know their history, and like, it's just not the same game that he started playing and that he fell in love with and that he became like, it became his career and his job. And so I could see Bananas going back to the OG season, the All-Stars, because it's going to be with people that he plays with, he's played with before. I think he'll like that dynamic better, and definitely the shorter season would be enticing for anybody that would be done with the current franchise.
I agree. Now, Chantel, we've got a bit of work to do here at the end of this episode. So if you guys are still here, you would have noticed that we don't have Mike on here with us at the moment. So sadly, we thought we would have Mike for the whole season, but he hasn't been able to make that work with us with his own schedule for what he's got coming up on his show. So it will be myself and Chantel that will finish off this season. If you're someone that really loves the challenge and you're interested in coming on these shows in the future, drop us a message. We do have our email, realitypopnetwork@gmail.com. You can always message us there. We'd be interested to talk to you, because we are planning on continuing these recaps even for the next season of the challenge moving forward. So we'd love to hear from you guys. But for this season, it is between myself and Chantel, and we have the job here to do at the moment of selecting between the 6 people that is left on Mike's draft, and to select some in our team. So both myself and Chantel, I think we would want to go for the same people here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a random name selector, and we're going to see who goes first on this pick.
And it would still be a snake draft, correct? So it'd be like the first person gets 1, and then 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
First, and do I have to? Does it matter male or female?
No, I think you just go. So
let me pull his
I
up.
am going to shoot.
Yes.
Yep. Let me just go. So what we'll do is we'll remove in this one here. We'll remove Trishelle, because she is out. There's 6 players left at the moment in Mike's team, and you have the first pick here, Chantel.
This is harder than I thought. I think that I just have to go with my heart and go for Darrell. I have to go.
That's a good choice.
I got to go with my guy. I was doing another draft with some fans, and I had him, Wes, and Gabby on my team. And I can't believe I didn't even get close to the finale. I was like, what? I'm out of here. And I thought I had like a pretty stellar team, and that Gabby would be a decent rookie. So I'm giving you another shot, Darrell. I would have picked you, obviously, if I had the chance on my team before Mike did. So yes, Darrell 100%. Is my pick.
No, I think it's a great choice. If you didn't go for him, I was going to go for him. I still think, I don't know if he's going to win, but you just never know with Darrell, because he does seem to be one of those people that don't get a lot of screen time in the early sort of stages of the episodes. And, I always wondered to myself, like, an edit matters. Like, having people being visible early in the season is still important for who's going to win long term. So I don't know how he's going to do, but good choice there. So it comes back to me, and I believe I get the next 2 picks. Is that correct?
So boy, girl.
Yep. Boy, girl. Okay. I'm going to go for the okay, we'll keep it boys first because you went boys first. I'm going to go for Mark Long. I'm going to take him off the out of rotation here because I think he's going to have a good season. He's going to go deep. And then for the girl on this, I know you guys said I was sleeping on Rufy in the beginning. I still just don't see her making it to the end. She's still not my number one girl pick. I'm going to go for Anissa, and I'm going to stick with experience here.
No, I think I probably, I'm not sure if I would go with Anissa next or Ruthie or not. I'd have to think about it. Only because I don't know if Anissa has shifted her mindset, because we know that she's always like, I always get out right before the final. And so she kind of has that belief still. Hopefully it's shifted and changed because she's in a different environment not with these people that like a Fessy that's like putting her down all the time. And so maybe she'll have a different result. So I think it's still a pretty good pick. I think that she has a lot of experience. She knows what it feels like to be in a final. She knows what it's like to be in these games for a long time. And so I think that she could do some fancy maneuvering and footwork to get to the end. So it's pretty good.
Okay, I'm happy with that. It makes me feel a bit more confident about that pick. And I do think Anissa is due a final. Like we've heard her talk about wanting to make a final for so long. And again, I think that's her in the preview that says, I want one of the good guys to win for a change. And I don't know. I just feel like I don't know if she'll win it, but I feel like she's a shoo-in to get to the end for me personally. Similar to Mark. They're kind of similar for me in that sense. All right, you're up next with the next two picks.
So I'm just going to do Ruthie and yes, baby. It's pretty self-explanatory. Ruthie, I don't know how much her head is going to be in the game right now. We did see that she must have done some work or studying or at least been keeping up with what's been happening in the challenge since she's last been on, because she did pretty damn well. They asked a lot of questions and she got a lot of them right that, a lot of super fans probably wouldn't have been able to get right. So hopefully she did some work. She seems like she's in good physical shape still. She has her partnership with Tech. I don't know if he's physically going to be able to protect her very much, but hopefully, that because she has at least one person in the game that's looking out for her, that she'll do decently well. She is small, so I wouldn't be surprised if people were like, "Oh, let's go against her because we think we can beat her." But she has a lot of fight, and she doesn't really quit. So I would give Ruthie. I'm okay with Ruthie.
I've been impressed with her this season. I feel like she seems to be a bit of a firecracker, and I think she will be tough to beat in certain eliminations. She'll come in with a lot of heart. The only reason I didn't go for her here was because I just don't know her from her original season, and I feel like I'd rather go with the devil I know than the one I don't know. So
Absolutely.
That's why I'm so opposed to her.
I mean, I don't even specifically remember Ruthie. I feel like there's been one elimination where I was super rooting for her. I feel like she gets people on her side and want her to do well, and so that could be what's followed. I don't remember her seasons really right now, but yeah. I just remember I was always rooting for her, and so that's kind of where I'm going here with Ruthie. And then yes, obviously, I think that he's still in pretty good physical shape. He knows math. He's at math champion. We know that the challenge loves giving them math problems. And so, if he does get to the finals, he might be able to blow through some of those questions if there are any. And yeah, I would love to give him a shot here. I could see him doing well. So
same. I think if I didn't know Mark's connections and the fact that he brought everybody together and seeing in the episodes that everybody seems to be listening to him and really respect the fact that he's brought all of them back, I probably would have gone for yes, just based on the fact that of what the show has shown us so far. I feel like he's been shown in a more positive light than Mark. Actually, Mark has actually been pretty invisible, when it comes to the actual show. We only see him talking to others here and there, but in this specific episode, we didn't see any of him. Not that we saw any of Yes either, but I feel like Yes could potentially be the underdog or the under the cover person this season that does a lot better than what people actually think that they would do. Now, my last automatic pick here, and no surprise for the second time in a row, she is the last person here, is Arissa. I feel like the edit really isn't protecting Arissa either. When she goes into this challenge in this episode, she says that, I'm maybe not good at the physical side, but I'm going to be great at the mental side. So let me show you guys what I'm going to do. And then they show her get the first question wrong immediately. So I feel like the edit is showing us that she is probably going to fall, to be honest. So we've got a new team. Sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say that I really wish that Trishelle had just gone against her. There's no way that Arissa would have been able to like carry those ropes and like move them through not as quickly as Trishelle anyways. And I think that it was a missed opportunity for her to get the win, but her being bitter and angry and wanting to prove a point with Katie made her make an emotional decision that wasn't in her best interest to win. And so I know this is what we love about these players, is them making bad decisions for their games. But if she was just like, if she had her head in the game more, she would have realized like, well, like I could beat Arissa in anything. But actually, I'm lying. Arissa and her were from the same season, so never mind. She's not choosing her.
Yes, so she wasn't going to go against her friend. And the other thing I was going to say is we never really touched on this, but how funny was it seeing Katie just go straight up to Trishelle and saying, if you don't want to work with me, or I can't remember the exact conversation, but it's basically, get Nehemiah to use the safety and I will go in there against you. I love it when I see people just balls to the wall, say to them, listen, I'm not afraid of you. I will take you on. I will take you out. I definitely saw why you picked Katie as your number one this episode, because I think she's going to bring the fire this year. I don't know if she's going to win it, because I feel like she's like, maybe with Trishelle being out of the show now, I think like Trishelle was her kryptonite potentially this season, the person that could get under her skin, because they do have this close of a bond and this close of a friendship. Maybe we see a more calm Katie moving forward without Trishelle in the game, but I loved seeing that fire in Katie saying, I'll take you on. I'm not afraid.
Katie's a badass. She's like, she gets it done and she's not afraid. And like, do you remember when she fell and she's like with the bloody nose and someone's like, just dip your head in water? She's like, F off. She's like, I can't believe I hit my effing face again. Like, that's Katie. That's what we love.
Yeah, and the back and forth between her and TJ, the whole episode was amazing as well. I'm here for it. I'm loving it. I'm a big Katie fan after what I've seen so far. Now, Chantel, any final thoughts on your end on this episode?
Well, it's not specifically about this episode, but one thing that I did see on Twitter, I don't know if you saw it, was that Johnny Bananas is not going to have Trishelle on her Christmas list anymore, because she's like, I don't know about Johnny Bananas. I don't give enough about Johnny Bananas. And so he's like, okay, you're not on my Christmas list anymore. So I thought that was kind of a cute moment. I didn't watch it before I watched the episode because I was worried it was going to be a spoiler of some sort. So I didn't watch whatever that clip was. But then I was like, after I was like, oh, right. When she was basically saying that she didn't give a shit about Johnny Bananas. I thought it was funny. So that was it. About this episode, I mean, it's bringing me exactly what I want to see. I want to see these old clips of these players in their prime, or when they had these big moments. I want to see the drama. I want to see the trivia. I want to see a good elimination. I want to see people that want to be there or want to fight to be there. But I also like the fact that they're still regular people. And I say that it's all the time, but like the Fessies, I'm not interested in seeing someone get like broken down by a football player. Like, that's just like, that's not what I want. I like seeing these people that Trishelle would rather just sit and have her cocktails, but sometimes she brings it. And so that's, I'm enjoying it. I think it's been really the light of my week.
That's awesome. Now, for me, as a new school fan of the show, like I feel like I do have a little bit of a different view about it as a whole compared to you, because I came into it so late. I really enjoy the current challenge. I know some people are really down on it. I like seeing athletes in some of these shows and seeing people do amazing things on our screen, especially if they do bring some drama as well. And I feel like maybe the challenge have had that a little bit wrong in recent seasons, and maybe we get some of the wrong type of drama come into the show that we don't appreciate seeing as much. Like, for me personally, not a fan of the Josh drama. I'm not a fan of Fessy as a person and how he comes across as a person.
I don't need to see a broken bone to be like, yeah, that was a really great elimination. Like, that's not.
But that was Carl's fault. That was Carl's fault. He admitted to it in the after show. He grabbed him and he got stuck.
The point is, though, like, it's like the Rogan. Like, I don't need to have Jay have a concussion so that Rogan is like the champion athlete. Like, it's not fun for me to see people get hurt in that sort of way. And it seems that that's the mindset that some of these new players come on, is that like, oh, the challenge is about really just near killing the other person.
Yeah. You see, I don't blame the players coming into this. I blame production. Like, I think that they've gotten lazy with some of these things, like the whole brawl we've seen too many times this season. And also, if you're gonna be bringing athletes onto the show, there's a reason when you've got wrestling or when you do any kind of like physical contact sport that there's actually weight classes for people to compete in. Like, if you're like so much heavier than someone else, that these sports like wrestling and karate and martial arts that have for years and years have had weight classes. UFC's got weight classes. This is like going back hundreds of years. There's always been weight class. The challenge comes in and they're like, oh, there must be no good reason for there to be a weight class. Let's just remove that aspect and let everybody go up against each other.
But
I feel like
it's because before it was just regular people, right? They weren't bringing in these super athletes to come in and compete with regular people. So it didn't matter. Like, you see Derek will go against somebody twice his size because he has like the heart and like the fire to be able to do that. And so they want to see the little guy come and take down the Fessy. But like, they have if it's a different mindset, how these athletes are taking these on compared to people that aren't athletic in that kind of capacity, and how they're just like, I think it's really unsafe, and I think that the challenge might not change anything until something seriously terrible happens.
And something seriously terrible will happen based on what's been happening in recent seasons. It's gonna blow up. I still think that production needs to tweak the show. Now, if you're someone that's jumped in quite late in the stream and you're hearing myself and Chantel talk about the actual challenge season opposed to the All-Star seasons at this point, it is towards the end of this show. We've actually just probably tease for you guys what we're going to be doing maybe in a couple of weeks' time here when the finale has played for the actual season, because we will do a recap of the whole challenge season, because we didn't start this recap show, I think, early enough, probably with the reality pop, that we can just jump into it halfway through it. But Chantel, I'm really looking forward to debating what the current season, what it was like, and where the show potentially should go moving forward, and how do we make it an appealing product. Because for me, I don't want these two shows to compete against each other. I know that we can share space with having the OG seasons out there and having the current seasons out there. And I feel like there's enough great players that could feed from the challenge as they complete their regime in the normal season, that could feed back into the All-Stars. And we can continue to see some of these All-Stars players also being
I never want to see Fessy or anybody from Big Brother on the OG season. I just do not want to see anybody from those. Like, only the challenge people is what I want to see. So if the real world, road rules, the challenge, fresh meat, that's it. Anyways. So hopefully if they just maintain it as that, and then they can do whatever they want with the current season of the challenge, I would be satisfied. But what I'm enjoying about it is that it's not like the other season.
I was going to say, you do know that Mark Long disagrees with you. He wants to take Fessy head on.
Well, who cares?
I've seen the comments.
He can want to take Fessy head on because, like, he's a guy, and guys want to, like, puff out their chest and, like, oh, like, I'm a big guy, I can take off this big ego. Like, fine, but it's not necessarily what I would want to watch that. I would want to watch him demolish Fessy. Like, I'd love that. But, like, I don't want to see Fessy on the OG season. Mark can go to the regular season of the challenge and go and take on Fessy, but I don't want him tainting my goodness.
No, it's been great talking to you, Chantel. I love the fact that, you're an OG fan watching an OG season and you're very passionate about it. Yep. I'm enjoying both iterations of it. I definitely do like the current challenge and I like this. I think that both of them can be appreciated for what they are. And, we'll be back, guys, next week to do another recap of episode 3 on the recap as well. So we're looking forward to it. I know it's a short season. We'll get through it pretty quickly. And like I said, keep an eye out for the finale of the actual season, because we will do some sort of a recap on the season, a retrospective. And potentially we may have a current challenge player on the show as well. I won't name them yet, because there is a chance that they might not be able to make it if they're in quarantine for the next season of the challenge.
Exactly.
Season. So we're kind of like in two minds, because we'd love to talk to them, but we can play in the new season. So either or. So it might not work out timing-wise.
We might have to get somebody else instead.
Exactly. We're just teasing you guys for now. But listen, it's been great talking to you, Chantel. Please, guys, if you do like this content, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're going to continue to do this every week. We've got plenty of other content coming out. Chantel is our Big Brother queen, and she does all the recaps for Big Brother Canada on the block on Reality Pop, and that's always live straight after the show. And I do a lot of Survivor Global content, so if you do know where to get your hands on some Survivor Global and you're a Survivor fan, you can definitely check that out weekly as well. We're doing rewatch at the moment of previous seasons, and we've got quite a few of the international players coming on and talking to us as well, which has been great. And then the big part of it is also the Survivor buffs that every week we'll bring out at least once on Thursdays. I believe they bring out an episode of the Survivor buffs, and it's various topics about past seasons, current seasons, future seasons that they'd like to see, some dream castings, all that kind of stuff. So that's it from us, guys. It's great talking to you, and see you next time. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.